Mary Elise.
Yes. Anybody who buys a computer has learned to accept the fact that the day after they bought their computer, it's obsolete. So you were just talking about the speed of the developing technology, and for people who might want to retrofit their home or get solar energy, at what point, how do they make the choices? How do they evaluate something that is changing every day? And when do they just decide now's the time?
To pull the trigger? Well, they decide when they get, frankly, probably tired of paying more for their existing form of electricity. Often, so this is one of those really interesting things about adoption and thinking about how people make individual decisions. That's one of the most interesting questions that I've gotten, because it goes to the heart of how do people choose one technology or when to adopt it. There's a history of examples of where things were cost effective that people just simply didn't do. It's cost effective to make sure your tires are pumped up, but if I don't do that as often as I should. There's a lot of things I should do that I don't do. But specifically to your question, one of two things will happen. Either the offering, somebody will come to you with an offer that says, that meets your criteria, whatever your criteria is. I can put a solar system on your roof today. You can save 30% off of your electricity bill, and you can lock in the rates that you pay for 20 years. That's essentially what a solar offering will be for a residential owner. It's actually the same thing that you would do to a commercial rooftop owner, or even perhaps an industrial user that had a lot of land that they wanted to put a ground mount system on. It's even how the utilities are buying solar these days, but that'll change. Or you'll decide that you're going to re-roof your roof, because roofs have to be repaired every so often, and it will make sense for you to, at that point, while you happen to have roofers and people up on your roof, to do it then. So there are logical times when the adoption decisions are made that might not have anything to do. But I do think it's a fair point that do you want to lock in these prices today, or do you want to wait a few years? But over a whole portfolio of 100 million homes in America, some percentage of those will continue to make the adoption decision, and that's where you see the overall market growth.
Chip.
Do you see tax incentives and government encouragement on this individual energy panels on houses?
Well, there are incentives in place now. If you wanted to, possibly. The point of the book that I wrote, Solar Revolution, and a lot of the work that we do is, frankly, they're not necessary. They're helpful, and if you believe that there are benefits to solar that aren't being fully priced into the thing, so if you think of yourself as a benevolent policymaker, and you think, there's all these benefits, people aren't being paid for them, like clean energy and local generation, which makes the grid more robust, so we get fewer blackouts, and there are a lot of benefits that don't get absorbed into the cost of solar. So if you're a policymaker, a real benevolent policymaker, you would suggest that you might want to encourage this more, and so you can get some range of what those benefits are worth societally, and you can create some incentives. And there are smart ways to do incentives, and there are dumb ways to do incentives. One of the dumbest ways to do incentives is to do them for a year or two and then let them expire for some indeterminate period of time, which is about to happen in the United States, and it's happened in the wind industry about every 4 years for the last decade. So but you can, I would expect that you'll get some, or maybe a little bit more. But if they were all stripped away, the economic drivers that are driving these things, the things that are making your oil and gas more expensive, the real physical limits to both the resources and the transmission and distribution are not going to change. And remember, they're subsidized, those industries are subsidized to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars a year of U.S. taxpayer dollars. So they're about as cheap as we can make them without, just handing them the keys to the store. Solar is, is going to get cheaper at some rates that I discussed, and you can't really stop that either. So at best, changing the incentives is only changing the time frames of sort of the crossover of economics by, something that could be enumerated in quarters or a few low-digit years, not decades. Now, the one thing I forgot to mention, if I may, is, there's a lot of concern about a lot of people remember that in the 70s this conversation almost verbatim occurred. I do actually remember the 70s. I remember the ads and I remember the president putting on his sweater to turn down the thermostat. That was not a savvy political move, was it? I remember the gas lines, and I remember people talking about solar energy. And as I bought PV News from its founder, which was founded in 1981, and every month I get to read about from the point where Reagan entered the White House and the hope that was just dashed month after month, quarter after quarter in the renewable energy community as Reagan not only sort of disemboweled all of the policy programs that were in place, and he ripped the solar energy off of the roof of the White House and fired everybody at the Department of Energy. And I get to witness this because I read this monthly from 25 years ago. I get to watch it every month, and it's almost like living it again, and it's really painful. And you hear all these people who perhaps had businesses back then who gave a lot of their time and money to get into the business, and are somewhat justifiably jaded that they made the commitment to try to solve the problem, and they were frankly just shot in the back of the head. And they say, well, what's different this time? Well, I'll tell you what's different this time. 25 years of technological progress is what's different this time. Energy prices did go down. We had some excess reserves, but solar prices have continued to fall. And if you compare, 25 years ago, a solar module was $30 a watt in today's prices. Today, the equivalent price for a solar module, for a really good solar module, to make a solar module, there is a company that can make it for $1.17 a watt. So we're dealing with more than a order of magnitude difference in the cost of these technologies. The size of these companies, the degree to which they are at the table negotiating. The biggest, 4 of the 7 biggest solar companies are Sharp, Sanyo, Kyocera, and Mitsubishi. So these are it just so happens that Japan got ahead of the curve early. GE's in the business, HP's in the business, Intel just announced that they got in the business. Walmart's a customer. This is not your father's solar energy. This is real electronics companies going nose to nose with real energy companies, and it's now really interesting, and they've got real economics to work with, and that's why it's not going to go away this time.
Well, we've taken a lot of your time, and does anyone have any burning questions they need to ask? If not, thank you so much for being here. Before you leave, let me just make a couple of announcements. First of all, as mentioned before, you'll get a packet as you leave with the prospectus that we're required to hand out, having talked on this subject. You'll also receive a limited edition T-shirt, which is quite exciting. Soon to be sold on eBay, I'm sure. So, oh, there it is, being modeled for us, actually. Spectacular. Okay. Not the shirts, but the models. Spectacular. All right. Great. Well, thank you all for coming. It means a lot to us, and have a pleasant evening. Thank you.